Hey guys, and welcome back to the second part of my Garrison critique thingy. This is just a quick little top 5 list of the good parts of Garrisons, because honestly, in the last video, I kind of ripped them to pieces. I still think that everything I said in that video is justified, and I suppose the reason why this video is not going to be as long as that one is because that's just the nature of saying that something is good. You say it's good, and then you move on. At least with criticism, you can kind of write a mini feckin' essay on every point that you have. Anyway, let's get into this damn top 5. So, coming in at number 5. It's at least something that, like, we can do, I guess, maybe? I mean, okay, even though I've got a lot of misgivings over the way the follower missions and stuff like that are done, Garrisons are going to provide something extra that you can do. And really, I suppose this feature nearly comes off like a strong case of WoW being a sort of jack of all trades and a master at only raids. That's what seems to sort of happen. And I know that this doesn't seem like a very positive point, but in a way it sort of is. This will at least provide something that some people will enjoy and do. There is positive value in that. It just, for me, isn't maybe as positive as it possibly could have been. Anyway, with that slightly negative positive point out of the way, let's move on to number 4, and that is the fact that they look bloody awesome. So, this is probably a short point, but look, just look at them. They look really, really cool, and the improvements from level to level with the Garrisons are really noticeable. It's damn impressive, and at least on a visual level, it is extremely compelling, you know? And every time you upgrade your Garrison, it feels very rewarding, which is certainly cool, and it's just a nice thing to sort of have, you know? And you can look at your Garrison and it's this big giant base, you know, that's really high fidelity, that looks just cool, and you can say, well, you know, this is kind of my home on this planet. That's just a nice feeling in the game. Now, okay, it needs to be more customizable in terms of the visuals and stuff, and the more that they do that, then the more that this factor will apply. If you can really feel like your Garrison is your own, and then it's just this big, awesome thing that you own, like, inside Draenor, well, then you're, I don't know, just going to find the feature very compelling. It's one of those things that's harder to put in words, but yeah, on the visual front, it certainly does look fantastic. I'm very happy with that. Alright then, let's move on to number 3, and that is the potential to enhance other parts of the game and allow you to customize your own gameplay. This is really quite an important point. So if done right, Garrisons will enhance the rest of WoW. Basically, if they bake the idea of a Garrison being your foothold into Draenor very much into the questing in a convincing manner, then it's going to result in loads of quests and things like that that people feel really engaged in. Like, if they really can just sort of emotionally and all that, you know, gumph, just ground you in your Garrison and just make that the absolute core of Draenor, in terms of it being your little foothold on the planet, then they can do some really interesting things. If you care about your Garrison, then anything that happens to that Garrison matters even more. There's this effect in some games, actually, that I really do like, and it's when they give you a safe hub zone that you feel just sort of nice and happy in, but then, you know, when they turn it on its heels. So if you were to take, say, BioShock Infinite, the parts of that game that I enjoyed the most were just the nice kind of peaceful places, but it was really cool when you saw them just be completely overturned. In fact, Warlords of Draenor as a whole is kind of like that. It's the Outland that we know and are used to and are comfortable in and enjoyed, but completely overturned and changed and made different. So if they could have some sort of crazy story thing go on with your Garrison, then boom, you know, people will care about that. So here's an example. Let's just say patch 6.2 comes out, and it's the final Iron Horde patch, you know, it's their final assault on our forces. Well, let's just say that you've got maybe a 5.1 style quest going on in your Garrison, and that quest will unlock maybe every 3 days. You know, you'll get a new chain or a new link in that quest chain. Now that'd be really cool, but imagine that every time, you know, in between those quests, whatever's going on at your Garrison kind of updates to reflect that, you know, culminating up to the final battle, which is some sort of really cool, like, you know, end quest like the Wrathgate or, you know, something like that. But if you can actually see your Garrison reflect what's going on in a questline like that, then it's just going to make things really cool and memorable. So that's definitely one thing that they can do. Now, in terms of enhancing other parts of the game and the gameplay customization, of course, you know, there are a lot of things in the Garrison that do enhance your gameplay. So if you're into, I don't know, farming, like the Pandaria farming, you can do that. If you're into professions, you can sort of enhance your professions with profession buildings. If you like pet battles, there's a menagerie. You know, if you're a fisher, then you can go get some extra daily quests. fishing dailies from your, like, little fishing shack in your garrison. There's lots of stuff there that's really cool. And really, it could all just be a central hub to those sort of non-raid or PvP elements of the game. And, of course, that just feeds back into the idea of much of the expansion being grounded within your garrison. So I think that's cool, and if they can make it so that also the perks of your buildings will enhance your gameplay to a noticeable degree, then that's going to be really cool. Already, what I've noticed is my garrison has given me this call to arms ability. Now, in a PvE scenario, just in the open world while I'm questing, that's extremely useful. Now, if lots of buildings can have things that aren't game-breaking but are extremely fun, then once again, we're going to have these perks which really enhance our game, and because you can't have every single building, there will be some gameplay customization there because you get to choose whatever perks you have based on the buildings that you decide to build. So because of that, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and that really is cool. Okay, time for number 2 on the list, and this is patch potential. I know it sounds a little bit strange putting a hypothetical so high up on a list, but I think that this is definitely worth talking about. So the garrison feature is essentially just perfectly suited to receiving content updates. Unlike most patch content, garrisons are going to last far beyond a single patch, meaning that any time spent on enhancing the feature within Warlords of Draenor's patch cycle is going to be rather worthwhile. Something that they fix up in patch 6.1 is still going to be useful in 6.4. Now, hopefully Blizzard will have created some sort of internal framework that's extremely extensible when it comes to adding new content to the garrison in a manner that's not too time-consuming, which means that in terms of the development resource costs, it will be fine, and, they won't be sort of cutting content somewhere else to add more to the garrison. So what could we have in future patches for garrisons? Well, I think the obvious ones are new followers and new missions, but other things they could do are, say, new buildings, as an example, new customization options. Of course, maybe a patch could come with a big story quest that's involved with your garrison, like I said in the previous point. Really, there are many options here when it comes to what they can do with patches, and they can just successfully iterate upon the garrison and keep people coming back with content that isn't the Facebook game, see my previous video for that, then they're really just going to have a cracker. But we don't know if they'll do this. Obviously, we hope they'll do it, but it's just, there is so much potential, I thought I had to put it here in the list, but they could totally just royally bollocks the whole thing up, in which case we would be left high and dry. Alright then, time to move on to number 1, and this may sound a little bit strange, but the best thing about the garrisons is that they can be used to get you out into the world. Now, garrisons are just a great place for sending us around the place. It's going to be a relatively regularly visited central location that's got a hero's call / war chief command board and a whole bunch of NPCs that can give you quests and things like that. So whether it's doing some dailies or notifying us about some sort of garrison event, the garrison will be able to just get us out and about. It just is a great way of notifying people about things without having to do some sort of immersion-breaking pop-up. Now, one of the things that is good about this as well is that because so many people in World of Warcraft just tend to find one place and just stick in it and not really see the rest of the world, well, that place will probably be your garrison in Warlords. Therefore, the places you're hanging out in is also the same place that notifies you about all the cool stuff that's going on within the world. I just think that could be really well used if Blizzard decide to be clever about it. Now, in terms of the garrison-specific things that they could do to get you out in the world, well, I think number 1, there should be some sort of garrison-specific randomized quest. And I don't mean 5.0 random, I mean having a really large pool of potential quests that's randomized to the degree where the chance of you getting the same quest, maybe, twice within a week, is very low. Even specific elements of the quests could be randomized, so we could face a different mini-boss, or, just various things like that to keep the gameplay interesting and fun. Now, this quest system could even be rolled into the idea of having missions for your character. I mean, right now we've got the follower mission system, where you click in the table and you send your followers off to do stuff. That's dull because you're not doing anything with your character. Well, how about you have missions that your own character can do? Maybe some of them could be very hard and reward a lot of gear but require a skilled player. Maybe some of them could be relatively easy. This would be a way of Blizzard just providing sort of interesting PvE content to lots of players of varying different skill levels. So that's pretty cool. Another way that they could get you out in the world with garrisons is, of course, just by having, a main patch story sort of quest chain unlock over a few days and have that involve your garrison. That's one thing. Then, of course, going around the world and hunting for rares and treasures and things like that, because obviously, if you pick up a treasure, then that actually gives you some garrison resources. So there's going to be a reason to actually go out into the world and not just hang out in your garrison. I think what's important is that they balance things such that it's not optimal to just sit in your garrison and always send followers and missions. What should be optimal is you going out into the world, collecting various items, doing various badass things, and then having that be the best way to kit out your garrison and make it epic. So there's a lot that they can do here, really, and it's all just a question of will they. Obviously, we're not too far into the beta testing process yet. Now, that still means that there's a little bit of time, at least, for design decisions to be made, but we don't know, what the full extent of garrisons will be. Blizzard hasn't fully played their hand. It's kind of like if this was a poker game, we've seen a bit of a glimpse of their hand. We have a fair idea what they're going to play, but we don't know exactly. And perhaps some of those exact details are going to be really exciting. But if the garrisons are sort of, just going to stay as they kind of are now in the beta, but a little bit more beefed up, then I just worry for the future. Though hopefully the sort of 5 points in this list will actually be realized. One thing you'll probably notice about the 5 points in this list is that they are in fact not really, often solid things that we know. There are forms of gameplay that just suit the garrison and make absolute sense for the garrison. Therefore, they're kind of in here as, top 5 parts of the garrison feature. However, if Blizzard does not act on the potential of this new system, then it will be squandered, a lot of dev time will have been wasted, and frankly, a lot of people will be thinking to themselves, you know what? Could we just not had Warlords of Draenor come out in June and just, feck the garrison feature? That could seriously happen if this release is in a lackluster state. So while this is, for the most part, a positive video, I just feel like I've got to end it in a word of warning. And by the way, if you haven't seen my other garrison video, which just kind of, at least, it tears into the garrisons, but in a more critique-styled way, then do check that out on my channel. It came out 2 days before this one. Anyway, that's it for me. Leave any of your opinions and thoughts down in the comments. I really want to hear them. Yeah, just, like, subscribe, all that great jazz, and I will see you next time.